Hello and welcome to the Viking Home Companion and another story from the good old days. And we're going back quite a ways with this one. I have two stories to tell that kind of focus on the fun and uncertainty in SCA combat, because there's all sorts of things that you can sometimes get away with while fighting in the SCA, especially in warfare for us, because it is so chaotic, and often when you're fighting against a group of people that don't know you well, they don't know how experienced you are or how good you are, and so that can cause them to be indecisive just long enough for you to take advantage of it. So I have two stories that touch on that. Now, the first story takes place, I was about 18 or 19 years old at the time, so we're talking the good old days here. And I had traveled down to a West Kaid war. Kingdom of the West is Northern California, Nevada, Alaska, and some Japan, and some of the islands in the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. And Kaid is Southern California. Basically, San Luis Obispo South is all the Kingdom of Kaid. And there used to be an annual war simply called the West Kaid War. There's new incarnations of it now, but back then that's what it was called. At any rate, I don't actually recall how many of my local group, the Shire of Vinhold, I believe at that time, although we later became a barony, had made it down there with me. I think there were one or two of us, but I don't think all of us got down there. And I had managed to borrow a helm, so I was able to fight heavy, because I didn't own my own helmet at that time. So, during the war, we have a resurrection battle. Now, this is a battle that is timed. It has a certain duration to it, and when you die, you go back to a designated area where you are counted as being a death, and then you're allowed to go back out and continue fighting. And the winner of the battle is the side that has the fewest deaths. That means you were the most efficient at killing the other side. There also are often other objectives that will earn you points during the battle. Now in this case, it was a capture the flag situation. They started with a flag out in between the two armies, and when they yelled to lay on, you charged out with a few guys trying to grab the flag and carry it back to your side, and then the other side, of course, is trying to capture the flag from you. So it's not that each side had their own flag, there was only one flag. So I was part of the group that ran out to try and get the flag, because I was fighting with a great axe and not with a shield. That made me a little lighter, and of course back then, 18, 19 years old, my hips and knees worked properly and I actually could run pretty good. Well, unfortunately we didn't manage to catch the flag. The Kaidans got it, took it back to their lines, and I got killed during the attempt, so I went back to the resurrection point, got counted, came back out, and as I'm heading back out to catch up with whatever unit I was fighting with at the time, like I said, I don't recall how many Vinholders made it down there, I saw a group of 3 or 4 guys coming around our right flank and heading into the backfield. So I go to intercept them. Now mind you, I'm expecting to get run over. It's 3 or 4 guys, I'm one guy. And my job at this point is simply to slow them down if I can, and maybe take one out if possible. And I'm fighting with a great axe. Now back then, I'm young, don't know a whole lot, and so I had made this great axe. It was about this tall, about up to my nose, but it was a butterfly double-headed axe. Big, huge, unwieldy, ungainly thing. But it looked as impressive as hell. So I take the axe, I raise it up, I yell, I strike a pose, and they stop. And I can hear them talking. One of them says, "Damn, that's a big axe." And another one says, "I don't know that guy. Is he any good?" And the other one says, I don't know who it is either, but damn, that's a big axe." Now this only goes on for a few seconds, and in the SCA, seconds count. Alright, so maybe after about 10 seconds or so, they go ahead and they advance to take me on, and I'm starting to try and figure out ways to maneuver so I can keep them tied up. But just at the moment that they decided to finally continue advancing, Duke James Greyhelm shows up with about 4 or 5 guys from the Resurrection Point that also included a couple of knights, and they just steamrolled those guys and kept going. I didn't take a swing at all. I just stood there. So, I managed to scare them to death by simply striking a pose with a big axe and being an unknown quantity. So I just trotted along behind Duke James to catch up with him and hung around with him for a while. I'm not sure if Duke James remembers that incident or not, but I do, and it was a lot of fun. Later on, I died gloriously charging at the Argent Angels of Caid, who had control of the flag. It was in the last few seconds of the battle, and I just wanted to make a splash of death. So the second incident takes place right around the same time. I was 17, 18 years old, and I had been fighting for a while to practice, and once again, I was only able to do heavy when I could borrow a helmet. Usually the great helm of Anthony the Sinister, who ended up becoming the first Baron of Vinvold when we turned into a barony. Now the thing about his great helm is it looked bloody impressive. I mean, when you think great helm, you think the big knight-type pot helm, right? Has the face plate right out to the front and eyes, and it almost looks like the prow of a ship out front. Got that slanted groove towards a flat top on it. The thing about his helmet was it was bloody damn heavy, and almost all the weight was all the way up at the top. It was not well distributed. It was a very top-heavy helm. And the guys used to amuse themselves at practice because they wouldn't throw snaps like this, and they wouldn't throw shots like this. They would throw shots like this or like this because they wanted to catch the tip edge of the helmet at the top. So they would make the helmet do this, and I would, whoa! And Torvaldr would fall over like a weevil. So, any rate, at this particular war, it was up at the Boy Scout camp at Lake Berryessa. And if you've seen some of my other videos, stories of the good old days, yes, I've talked about that site a lot because early on in the West Kingdom, we used that site a lot. Wonderful site for SCA wars. Had a lake there that we could go swim in to cool off afterwards. It had camping areas. It had nice terrain. We could do open field, castle, and forest battles. So we used it quite a bit. Now, at this war, I could not borrow a helm. So I was mainly doing archery and javelin. Javelin, at that time, were PVC pipes with padded ends on them that you could throw at people. And I was not using a hand bow, I was using a crossbow that had been made for me by a gentleman in the Shire called Regulus, I believe, Regulus the Wanderer. Now, he had made this out of a piece of 2x4, carved it up a little bit, put a wheel lock mechanism in it with a release handle, and then had connected a fiberglass bow onto the front of it. And wasn't terribly effective, but it was fun. And I went out in the early part of the war with it, eventually switched off of that into just doing javelins. But early on, I had a great couple of moments with it, so that's what I'm going to talk about next. It was a Missinagua war, and it was an all-day resurrection war, and there were not set battles. We had an open field, we had a river with a ford and a bridge, there was a village, there was a castle, there was a forest area to go fight in. And Sinagua at this time had control of the castle. So I wandered over toward the castle. Our side was not actually attacking it at that point. We were involved doing something else. But I took the crossbow and I fired, and I didn't shoot at the guys that were at the wall facing me. I shot past them into the backs of the guys on the far side. So I fired, hit one guy, he went down, and then someone in the castle yelled, "Crossbow!" And everybody ducked. Oh, it was hilarious. The entire castle just ducked. So I reloaded, and I stood up on top of a tree stump that was there. It was about maybe 2 feet high, but it got me up to the point where I could see over the first wall. I could still see some guys crouching, so I fired again, and the entire castle shifted so that I was not able to get a line of sight on anyone. and I hear somebody inside yell, "Archers, get the crossbowmen!" And there's this pause. "What do you mean we don't have any archers?" So they send out a couple of guys in plate armor to catch me or at least chase me off. And this is back at the time where plate was considered proof against arrows, so there wasn't anything I could do to them. So I just took off running and they started chasing me. I was angling to get close to some of our guys so I could get some help and some cover. And as I'm running along, I can't reload the crossbow. It isn't as easy to reload the crossbow on the run as it would be for a regular hand bow. It's part of the reason why later on I put it down and grabbed javelins. So as I'm running though, these guys are slowly catching up to me because I'm not really trying to distance them. I'm trying to drag them into fighting some of our heavies. And as I get close to our heavies, I turn around quickly, point the crossbow at them and yell, "Yeah!" And the two of them try to stop so quickly that they slip on the ground and fall down, and a couple of our guys get right up over to them and do a ground kill. In the SCA, you're not allowed to hit somebody that's prone on the ground. What you do is you get right up to them, you point your weapon at them and tell them they're dead. So I once again scared two people to death without firing a shot or hitting them. So that's my story about the good old days and big, scary Torvaldr. Yeah, sure, you betcha.